call to order the Gurnee Village Board meeting for September 13th, 2021. Roll call, please.
O'Brien.
Present.
Balmas.
Present.
Thorstenson.
Here.
Woodside. Ross. Garner.
Here.
5 present, 1 absent.
Trustee Woodside did tell us tonight that he'd not be here. And would you all stand with me for the Pledge of Allegiance?
Liberty and justice for all.
Start with the approval of the consent agenda as presented. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Trustee Balmas, second by Trustee Garner. Roll call, please.
O'Brien.
Aye.
Balmas.
Aye.
Thorstenson.
Yes.
Ross.
Aye.
Garner.
Aye.
5 aye.
Motion carries. Pat?
Item number 1, approval of the minutes from the August 16th, 2021 meeting. Item number 2, approval of ordinance 2021-54, adopting a whistleblower protection policy for the Village of Gurnee as required by 50 ILCS 105/4.1. Item number 3, approval of resolution 2021-10, establishing certain property of the Village of Gurnee to be surplus, Police Department Unit Number 164. Item number 4, approval of payroll for period ending August 13th, 2021, in the amount of $889,792.90. Item number 5, approval of payroll for period ending August 27th, 2021, in the amount of $880,000.22. Item number 6, approval of bills for period ending September 13th, 2021, in the amount of $2,361,209.66.
Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Trustee O'Brien, second by
Ross.
Trustee Garner. Roll call, please.
Who was it?
O'Brien.
Ed Ross, okay. All right.
Trustee
O'Brien.
Garner hasn't become mayor yet, so it'll be
Stay there.
soon, yes.
O'Brien.
Aye.
Balmas.
Aye.
Thorstenson.
Yes.
Ross.
Aye.
Garner.
Aye.
5 aye.
Motion carries. All right, petitions and communications. The first one is approval of proclamation designated September 15th through October 15th, 2021 as Hispanic Heritage Month in the Village of Gurnee. The Hispanic Heritage Month, again, just in the Village of Gurnee, we recognize what the Hispanic American community has done, specifically for me. This past year, my son Zach married Andrea Hood now, and she was a resident of Venezuela. So as a part of my family, I now have a Hispanic American. So it's a time in which we recognize all that they've done from the 5 Latin American countries, and that they're a part of our, as Americans, they're a part of our community. So we appreciate that, appreciate all that they do. So therefore, I, Thomas B. Hood, Mayor of the Village of Gurnee, do hereby proclaim September 15th through October 15th, 2021 as Hispanic Heritage Month in the Village of Gurnee, and urge our citizens to honor and celebrate the achievements of people that have contributed so much to our American culture. Is there a motion to
So
approve?
moved.
Second.
Motion, Trustee O'Brien. Second, Trustee Thorstenson. Thank you. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Just as a reminder, my business luncheon, Mayor's Business Luncheon, September 23rd, 2021, at Great Wolf Lodge, put on by the Chamber of Commerce. Just as a reminder to please, I think there was a glitch in their tickets so that it's not sold out. So please go on the website to be able to get your ticket, or actually as a trustee, you can talk to Donna and make sure that she has you set up for that. So. And then as far as reports, presentation by Finance Director Brian Gosnell and Economic Development Director Ellen Dean, proposed budget amendment and COVID-19 Relief Business Capital Investment Grant Program. Brian?
Thank you.
Before we get into the proposed budget amendments and some of the COVID relief program, I just wanted to walk through a little bit about where we ended last year, just as a reminder of how we did financially. We started out last year, so this would have been May 1 of 20, with our original budget that projected in the general fund surplus of just over $105,000. We did pass our budget as we prepared it, and then we amended it almost immediately. So we had our first amendment the very next meeting after we passed it, before the fiscal year even started. When we got into preparing the budget, again, shortly after the beginning of the year, we started to get a better handle on what some of the impacts of COVID would be. So we estimated we would lose about $10 million in revenues, and we'd be able to make up about $5 million of that in expenditure cuts. So in the end, we would net about $5 million use of fund balance. Getting through the year and preparing for the current budget, getting some different expenditure estimates and stuff from the departments during the budget process, we revised those to be about $7.7 million drop in revenue and make up about $4.7 million on the expenditure side, for a use of fund balance of just under $3 million. Now, that included, if you recall, $1.4 million in CARES Act money that we got from the county distribution. So that is included in those numbers. Where we ended the year, at the end of last year, if you remember the reports, revenues started to bounce back pretty good. So we ended the year about $6.7 million down in revenues. We were able to trim almost $5.5 million in expenditures. Again, this does include the CARES Act money. So in the end, we ended up using about 1.13 of fund balance. Now, that is on top of what we have budgeted for this year, which is a $922,000 use of fund balance. So $2 million over 2 years, and again, that includes the $1.4 million from the CARES Act. So we ended up, in the end, way better than we thought we would do. Obviously, in the beginning of last year, there was a ton of uncertainty around what was going to happen and how revenue streams were going to be impacted. So we were conservative. I think it paid to be conservative. We were able to react pretty quickly and ended in a better position. So that brings us to the ability to look at this year and look at a few different adjustments from a staff with input from the board on what we wanted to do. Really 3 categories: operating and capital. This is what did we exclude from the budget that we want to get back in, that's priority. What can we do with partner agencies that were excluded from this most recent American Rescue Plan Act? They were not beneficiaries of that, just more based on how the makeup of Illinois governments, local governments are set up. How can we help the business community and residents that were hurt by the pandemic? And then finally, an update on the ARPA. We received our first funding, first half of the total funding. So we'll add that to the budget amendment and see how that impacts the total budget this year. So looking at operating and capital, again, what did we exclude that we think is priority to put back in? On the operating side, as you know, last year all the employees, I don't want to say forfeited, but forewent the COLA increase, so reinstating that. Adding back a maintenance worker position. Let me go back real quick to the COLA here. I said reinstating, it's a one-time payment to make up for those, to make up for the wages lost during that time period for existing employees. Maintenance worker position, add that back. And then a communications operator position. We had 2 budgeted. The joint ETSB board agreed to pay for one for a year. This would put back the second one. On the capital side, as you know, our long-term capital plan, part of the funding includes surplus transfers from the general fund every year. So without that, when we miss a year, that has an impact on all 5 years of the capital plan. So restoring that so we can stay on track with that plan. With partner agencies, we took a look at how we could help each agency, trying to keep it equitable among the districts from a total benefit standpoint. So we're looking at about $300,000 here, waiving half of the SRO fees, looking at the park district and the library, some capital projects, see what we can partner on, up to $50,000. And then the Visit Lake County contribution is currently capped. We'd look at raising that by $50,000. Again, to stay equitable with the other agencies, and that may take a couple years to realize that benefit. So we may be talking about a couple of these again during the budget process. Business fees and grants, I'm just going to touch on this a little bit. Ellen's going to go into a bunch of detail, but looking at some different fees and then a grant program, and then foregoing a water and sewer increase May 1st again this year. That'll be 2 years in a row without a water and sewer increase. Obviously, that benefits residents and businesses. As I mentioned, we have received the first half of our ARPA funding. We weren't quite sure how that was going to come in, but we did receive it in August. Just $2,064,856. So when we package all these together, we look at what the impact is to the total fiscal year 22 budget. So we started the year with $922,000 deficit budgeted. As I mentioned, if we add the items in we just talked about, plus the first half of the American Rescue Plan funding, the total budget deficit changes by about $8,800 to the good. So it pretty much is a wash here. Kind of to get those things, kind of effectuate the change we're looking for here. Budget amendment, a comprehensive fee schedule amendment, and then discuss the grant program tonight, and then bring that back for formal approval at the next meeting. So those are kind of the vehicles to set all this in motion. And with that, I will let Ellen go into detail on the business fees. Any questions on the first part? All right, Ellen?
No.
Thank you, Brian. Thank you, Mayor and Board. So there are three parts to the business fees and grants. You're becoming very familiar with these. The first one is a liquor license waiver. So the village obviously finds itself in a position to be able to help our small businesses, and a large part of what we value in this community is small business, and small restaurants are a big part of that. So just to kind of set the stage, I guess, I will just share with you, and I know you know this, that our business community has been incredibly innovative. Not just the restaurants, but all of our business community, and they've been adapting to changes that they could not possibly have foreseen. So all of the things we're going to talk about tonight really sort of address that. Food and beverage establishments have been hit particularly hard over the past 18 months. They've borne a burden that some other types of businesses have not. So thinking all the way back to March and April, they were completely closed for the first couple months of the pandemic, followed by only curbside and delivery, and then gradually able to add liquor to go, and then able to add curbside and pickup, but at very expensive third-party delivery costs, and finally restricted indoor dining. So it's been a very slow progression for the food and beverage industry. So the proposed liquor license waiver at $50,000 sort of recognizes these ongoing challenges, and while it doesn't begin to replace those months of lost revenue and extra costs that they're now facing, especially through labor shortages and food supply rising costs, it is the piece that we control, and it is our contribution to helping them remove one element of cost as they plan for revitalizing next year. So annual liquor license fees for on-premises, which is restaurants primarily, some small events establishments, range from $1,200 to $2,250 a year, depending on whether they cover just beer and wine or full liquor. Our proposal is to waive 100% of that for those eligible businesses, of which we think there are probably 20 to 25. So the budgeted amount of $50,000 allows for everyone who currently is eligible, and then if any other on-premises restaurants are added by the end of this year, they would also become eligible. Have to have your foot in the door with an on-premise license by the end of this year. And then the beauty of this program is that it will be administered by staff, and it really requires, if you're eligible, requires no action on the business's part other than just to go through the normal 2022 renewal process. Village staff will apply the fee waiver, and it's very easy for them to access. Same thing with the next portion. This is a business license fee reduction of 50%, but it's across all business types, not just one sector like the previous one was, which is just for food and beverage and events. This is really a recognition of the fact that while certain sectors, like the food and beverage sector, may have borne disproportionate impacts that were more visible to us because they're consumer-facing, or they were more intensely experienced because they're independents versus chains, the reality is that all of our businesses, whether they be manufacturers, retailers, professional offices, service sector, in their own way, they all had to adapt and change over the past 18 months in ways that, they couldn't have imagined. So this is really a recognition of that, and it's with that in mind, our proposal is to reduce the 2022 business license fee by half. Again, very automatic, very easy. It'll just show up in their renewal process as that new reduced fee. So just an interesting side note, while Gurnee probably is best known for our large businesses, the fact is that over 60%, if you look at all 1,170 or so licensed businesses, the majority are still small. They're not affiliated with a chain of 20 or more locations. So while this is very broad, it also still hits, our small businesses, the majority. So the third element starts to get a little bit more, complicated, but also exciting in its opportunities. It's something that we have talked about doing for quite some time, and it's a privilege now to be in the position of being able to do it with the village board's support of the proposed amendment to the budget. In spite of the challenges of our times, if you look around you, you will see examples everywhere of businesses, investing for their own revitalization, looking ahead to the future. Some are doing it out of necessity, of course, and some are doing it out of a hopeful, approach to the future. And so when they invest, obviously the benefit accrues to them, but it also accrues to the community when they invest in a permanent way in their property. So this is something we certainly want to encourage. Capital investment is the lens through which we've always reviewed our redevelopment agreements when we've done them. It's also the lens through which communities approach facade renovation grants. So this is sort of structured similarly to a facade renovation grant. So our proposal is a matching grant program up to $10,000 per business, targeted toward the retail, the restaurants, and the entertainment businesses that are so critical in terms of the revenue that they generate and the tourists that they bring to keeping our ability to maintain village operations without a property tax. That's why they're the targeted audience. So there are a few business types that are not eligible, but by and large, and the 20 location cap still applies to this grant program. But by and large, if you're an independent retailer, restaurant, or entertainment business, you'll find yourself eligible for this if you're investing, one-for-one matching, and you'll find a very straightforward, simple process that's easy to navigate. Our goal is to get these funds into the hands of these businesses who need it and are putting it to good use for them and for us. So staff's proposal is to allocate first time $250,000 in funds to this small business capital grant. If, funds are left at the end of the year, we can certainly roll them over with the village board's concurrence. If they are exhausted quickly, which would be a great thing, we may very well come back to you and request more funds, assuming that fits within the budget priorities and the scenario that we face at that time. We know many businesses have already invested during the pandemic, much to their credit, and so we don't want to penalize them for that. So our approach is to recommend that we make this program retroactive to any projects that were in place at the start of 2020, all the way through 2024, so that those who haven't yet envisioned, how to invest will have time to plan for those kind of large capital projects. So in effect, I think this is about supporting the businesses who are investing in Gurnee by investing with them. So I guess the main points here are that the application will open on October 1st. We'll place the application on our website, and we have all, I think, committed from mayorhood on down, and all of you have expressed the same desire. We don't need to add to the complexity that these businesses have faced over the past 18 months. We want to be part of making their, success easier, and so the whole idea is to really make this streamlined and get the money out to them. So the list here, as you'll see, is pretty expansive. It's pretty varied, but the common theme of all of those items that you see there are that they're durable, of a permanent nature. They have lasting value that extends way beyond any one tenant or one occupant. And while we do want to make everything easy about this program, we do ask for our businesses to be vigilant and mindful that they don't use these capital grant programs or funds to repay themselves for other expenses that have already been paid by another program. So I think that is the summary, and we certainly appreciate our business's investment. We appreciate the village board's consideration of this really wide-ranging package of thinking about how we can help the community. And with that, I'm sure that Brian and I will answer any questions that you may have.
Any questions? Trustee O'Brien?
I absolutely love what we're being able to do, so that's fantastic. I do have we're going to go into the minutia of the actual small business capital grant next week, right?
Correct.
I'll hold off then.
Okay.
Trustee
Thank you for
Thorstensen?
your
Oh,
support,
sorry.
though.
Trustee Thorstensen?
I also like that it seems that this plan is a good cross-sectional view of all of our small businesses, so good opportunities for all of our businesses that are impacted. You gave an example on the first one, the liquor license waiving, saying it'd be between $1,200 and $2,250.
Yes.
The 50% on the business license, I think they're prorated by employees, correct?
So the business license is actually by size. So up to 10,000 square feet is one price, 10,000 to 19,999 is another, and then above 20. So, so this would apply to all. Would apply to all.
So do you have an average on the business license?
On the square, well, so the base, help me, 300 to 600, 150, 300, 600, that's it. So what I can share is that 2/3 of our licensed businesses actually fall into that under 10,000 square foot category, which is really amazing when you think about it, but that is the case. So the majority are paying the lowest annual fee,
And I'm sorry, what was that?
150.
50. Okay, thanks. And then the business grant, which, I think is exceptional. You mentioned the open date.
Yes,
And while it sounds like there's not a rush for the businesses to get there, like use it or we're going to close up the door, do you have a close date or any anticipation on how we would communicate to get to the next level of funding if needed?
well, I think like with anything, we want to, from the time of grant award, let's say someone applies and gets awarded, I think a reasonable time frame. We can talk about that, but a year would seem to be one possibility, that if you apply, we'll commit funds and they're yours, assuming that you deliver on the project for which you applied. But we probably ought to have an end date by which those need to get spent, and maybe if a year is too restrictive, we can certainly talk about more. Those are the kinds of fine points that we'll bring back to you, and frankly, we may have to tweak them to be really responsive to the types of projects that we're seeing. But the short answer to your question is that the final end date would be the end of 2024. So I think what we envision is that as long as a project was completed by that, or at least in process by that time, that would be so we've got a long window.
That's great. I just didn't want our businesses, by the time it's announced, to think that they have a number of days to get to that October 1 open.
Right, I think that's a great point, because so many programs over the past 18 months have been exactly that. If you weren't in the door very quickly, funds were exhausted. So that's probably the mindset, and so we should combat that as much as we can.
Thanks. Good job.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Nope. Thank you, Ellen.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Brian. So, no old business, right, Pat?
Correct.
New business? That's it. Approval of ordinance 2021,
55.
amending the annual budget of the Village of Gurnee, County of Lake, State of Illinois for the fiscal year beginning May 1, 2021, and ending April 30th, 2022.
Sure. So this was just covered by Brian in his presentation. Amending the budget, when you look at the total revenue adjustments, it's $1,739,856. When you look at the total expenditure adjustments, $1,731,000. So as Brian stated, the net on that is a plus $8,856. This adjusts for the adjustments in the business licenses, liquor license revenue, working with our partners, adding in the ARPA funding, and then those operational items that we're going to put back in the budget, as Brian discussed, the one-time payment for the forfeited COLA, and the communications and the public works maintenance worker position.
Is there a motion?
So moved.
Motion by trustee Garner,
Second.
second by trustee O'Brien. Is there any discussion? Roll call, please.
O'Brien.
Aye.
Thomas.
Aye.
Thorstenson.
Yes.
Ross.
Aye.
Garner.
Aye.
5-0.
Motion carries. Item number 2, approval of ordinance 2021,
56.
amending the comprehensive fee schedule of the Village of Gurnee, County of Lake, State of Illinois.
Again, Brian talked about this during his presentation. This will amend the liquor license fees for the class 1, 2, 4, 7, 8, and 10 liquor licenses, as we talked about, allowing those to continue on in 2022 at no charge, and then adjust the business license fees by reducing them by 50%, so 150 to 75, 300 to 150, and so on.
Is there a motion?
So moved.
Motion by trustee Baumus, second by trustee Garner. Roll call, please.
O'Brien.
Aye.
Thomas.
Aye.
Thorstenson.
Yes.
Ross.
Aye.
Garner.
Aye.
Motion carries. Oh, thanks. Just a commentary at that, I just would really say, I just really appreciate what the board has done. One, being so cooperative, but providing a foundation to allow us to do this, because over the years of having a reserve, being low in terms of our borrowing, being very conservative, allows us to take the actions that we took today, and that's because the board has taken those actions over the years. And second of all, I just appreciate the staff's involvement in reaching this point. Having talked to several mayors over the last few months, this isn't the norm. I just really appreciate the staff's involvement. I appreciate the board's involvement in cooperating and working and having ideas and coming to something that, as we sit here today, seems easy, but it really wasn't. So I really appreciate all those activities from everybody, and especially from the board. So item number 3, approval of ordinance 2021,
57.
granting a zoning text amendment pursuant to the Gurnee zoning ordinance for Article 8 uses and 15 application procedures. Pat?
Sure. So the next two items on the agenda are somewhat related, so I will cover them here in one foul swoop, and then we'll take separate votes on them. The first one here is a couple text amendments. The first text amendment is to add to Article 8 uses place of worship as a special use permit in the O1 Restricted Office District. The second amendment here relates to Article 15 and pertains to pre-application or informal reviews. So the first text amendment came about in response to a request from Way Through the Word Ministry Church, which is the next item in your agenda, looking to rezone the property at 151 North Greenleaf to either C2 or R1 to allow a church at that location. They appeared before the Planning and Zoning Board, and as the Planning and Zoning Board discussed it, rather than rezone the property, they favored allowing churches as a special use permit in the O1 district. So that's your first text amendment there. The second text amendment relates to some language in the zoning ordinance application procedures that stipulates that a formal application or fee is not required for a pre-application or informal review. However, the process is that there is an application that must be filled out for the informal review process. Also, fees are not discussed anywhere else in the zoning ordinance, so that language really should be struck from there. So those are the two text amendments. As it relates to the next request on the agenda, as I said, is somewhat related. Way Through the Word Ministry, as I said, looking to locate at 151 North Greenleaf. This is the former Skill Animal Hospital. 30-member church looking to occupy the building, start out only using a portion on a regular basis, then the other areas of the building as needed. Main hours of operation Tuesdays and Sundays. They were before the PZB on the 18th and received a unanimous favorable recommendation, subject to a couple conditions. One, that the parking lot be striped per the plan presented to the PZB and that they have signed it for one-way circulation through it. And then 2, just some areas of the parking lot that need to be repaired are done. So first item on there, a couple text amendments, if approved, allows the churches in O1. Second on here is the actual request from the church to locate at 151 North Greenleaf. So
is there a motion as to the zoning text amendments?
So moved.
Second.
Motion by trustee Garner, second by trustee Thorstenson. Roll call, please.
O'Brien.
Aye.
Thomas.
Aye.
Thorstenson.
Yes.
Ross.
Aye.
Garner.
Aye.
5 aye, 1 absent.
Motion carries. Approval of ordinance 2021,
58.
granting a special use permit pursuant to the Gurnee zoning ordinance to allow establishment and operation of a place of worship on property located at 151 North Greenleaf Street. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Motion by trustee Baumus, second by trustee Garner. Roll call, please.
O'Brien.
Aye.
Thomas.
Aye.
Thorstenson.
Yes.
Ross.
Aye.
Garner.
Aye.
5 aye.
Motion carries. Item number 5, approval of ordinance 2021,
59.
granting a major amendment to the Gurnee Business Center Plan Unit Development for property located at the northwest corner of Skokie Highway and Washington Street. Pat?
Again, next two items are somewhat related on here, so summarize them in one summary here and then two separate motions. So petitioner came forward looking to locate a tattoo shop over at Washington Ambrosio, in the Gurnee Business Center, Plan U development. That was approved in the late 80s and includes the C2 and I2 designations there. The PUD does not have body modification establishment or tattooing and piercing as a use because the old zoning ordinance didn't have that in there. When we went and updated the zoning ordinance in 2015, that was added as a special use in the C2 and C3 districts. So they're requesting that this use be added to that PUD list, which is in line with our current zoning ordinance. As it relates to the specific request, which is next on the agenda, the special use permit for the establishment of a tattoo and piercing shop, 3900 Washington Streets F and G. If the item number 5 on the agenda was approved, they're looking to open up business in units F and G there along Washington Street. Some of the details of the facility, 5 artists, 1 body modification artist at this location, microblading, tattooing, piercing. The space is about 2,400 square feet. Hours of operation typically closed on Mondays, Tuesdays through Saturday, 11 to 10, Sundays, 11 to 6. All work is done by appointment only. Everything would be up to all the health department, FDA requirements as it relates to this type of business. We also have some regulations internally related to the zoning ordinance. All of those standards would need to be met. The petitioner is aware of that. You did have a letter here at your place that I also emailed out earlier this week, which is from the shopping center where they're looking to locate, and it's signed by the management company, and then multiple tenants that are located in that facility showing support for the request for the business to locate in there. Both of these items appeared before the Planning and Zoning Board on the same night. They were separate items on the agenda, but the PZB voted. They had it in one single motion. So it was a 2-2 tie vote on the motion as it relates to the request to actually open the tattoo studio. A couple of the PZB members were not in support of it because they felt it was too close and too visible to some of the restaurants in that center. Those that were in favor of it pointed out that it meets all the separation requirements in the zoning ordinance and the licensing requirements that the village board would have in place. The petitioner's here. So that's a summary of those 2 items.
All right, with reference to the first, granting a major amendment to the Gurnee Business Center Plan Unit Development, is there a motion?
Second.
Motion by trustee Garner, second by trustee Balmas. Roll call, please.
O'Brien.
Aye.
Balmas.
Aye.
Thorstenson.
Yes.
Ross.
Aye.
Garner.
Aye.
5-0.
Motion carries. Approval of ordinance 2021-60, granting a special use permit pursuant to the Gurnee zoning ordinance to allow establishment and operation of a body modification establishment on property located at 3900 Washington Street, units F and G. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Motion by trustee Balmas, or trustee O'Brien, sorry. Second by trustee Garner. Any discussion? Yes? Trustee O'Brien?
I'd just like to point out how rare it is to see a letter from all the neighbors and the management company welcoming them to the village. I'm not sure if I've ever seen such a letter in response to something like this, so that's just really moving, actually.
Any other comments? Roll call, please.
O'Brien.
Aye.
Balmas.
Aye.
Thorstenson.
Yes.
Ross.
Aye.
Garner.
Aye.
5-0.
Motion carries. Welcome to the community. Thanks. You're welcome. All right. And next is public comment. If anybody would like to make a public comment, they may step to the microphone, state your name and your address. There being none, any motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Motion by trustee Balmas, second by trustee Garner. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries.